What's good, party people? This is According to Woods, and I have the honor and privilege of talking to a K-pop impresario S, a my comrade at bodyslam.net. She is the one, the only Carisa Lopez. Carissa, what's going on?
Nothing much. Just had a really productive day, and I'm really excited to do this interview.
Yeah, productive days are awesome, aren't they? Rather than just like, I don't know, I ain't doing shit that day or what have you. I don't know what the parallel kind of conjugure is, but glad you had a productive day. Pretty good, yeah.
Yeah, pretty good, honestly.
How's the weather where you're at?
All right, so it's getting pretty cold now,
Okay.
but it hasn't snowed just yet.
Ooh, wait, is the snow what you're actually waiting for, or
It's the snow I'm actually worried about because I don't want any snow to come by the time I leave for vacation. So,
okay?
get
So
that.
you just want to be totally and utterly scoff free, essentially.
Yes.
That's a good way to be. 100%. Like I'm crying. It's about 50 degrees here in LA, and I am like crying like a little baby. It's just raining, but I'm all like, this is not what we pay the high taxes for. This is not it. So I mean, it's you don't like the cold either, though.
No, I'm such a spring summer baby because my birthday's in the spring, so I'm really used to that weather. And since
Ah,
I'm away for vacation, I won't be around snow for at least 3 weeks.
wow. Okay, that's awesome. So, and is that the kind of I noticed that with the people from the Northeast, like they when it gets to be a little bit cold, they kind of not flee, but they go to warmer climates.
Yeah, and it's like it's like my first time in 3 years since I've been out of the country for vacation, so I'm kind of excited.
Nice. Congratulations. You earned it. You absolutely earned it. But my goodness, Carissa, how we know each other is being associated with bodyslam.net. Shout out to Cassidy and the rest of the crew. But how did you get into all the wrestle stuffs?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so this is like somewhat complicated, but when
Okay.
I was 8, my cousins had come for Christmas and we were having dinner. And then my cousin, he was a big WWE fan, big TNA fan. So I believe Raw was on Sci Fi at the time, and then SmackDown was like on My 9 before they changed to Pix 11. So he had turned on Monday Night Raw, and I saw like John Cena, Natalia, Beth Phoenix, The Rock, Undertaker, Edge, all those other like the OGs of that era. I like my eyes were so glued to it. So I was watching from like late 2010 until like early 2011 because I was a dancer for a couple years. So I had a busy travel schedule, so I wasn't able to like watch a lot of like wrestling. So yeah.
That's a good era to be in. Goodness gracious. Our friend Mick Mac over from the Eric Bischoff podcast says Adam owes me $6, which you haven't defined if that's $6 US where we are here, or Australian where you live, Mick Mac. And once you do that and send me the deets to the Venmo, you'll get your $6. How about that?
Oh yeah, I forgot to add one thing. So then when I took like a big break from like 2011 to say 2019, um by 2019 I started watching WWE again. I started watching like in August, September. So I caught up with everything as fast as I could. And then later on in that year, I was watching Impact on Access TV. So I got hooked on that. During the pandemic, I had Fight, so I watched Ring of Honor. I watched
Mhm.
MLW, and I watched AEW occasionally until like September 2020. That's when I started to watch like weekly when all
Yeah.
the changes happened, like the schedule changes with AEW and WWE.
No, 100%. Which I mean, you were saying that you got caught up, between the literally the mid 2000s to like when you kind of evaluated your love for professional wrestling, right? So, um, it in did you really have to kind of reassess, because there are a lot of people that in the 2010s 2011s that were there that are maybe either hall of fame inductees now, or just gone away from the company, is in some instance gone away from wrestling, period. So what in that where did you feel like you had to kind of like kind of calibrate yourself to like this current era of wrestling?
So like during 2019, that's when I think it was a Raw reunion. I was watching on
Mm,
demand, and then I saw all the legends, and I didn't know what was happening. So by that time, I was starting my senior year in high school. I just like read articles. I caught up with like everything, like the history. So in that way, helped me kind of understand what was going on with this current state of WWE in 2019.
who were some, because you're going into like my era of wrestling, right? When you see like a Jake the Snake Roberts, or maybe a $1 million man, Ted DiBiase, or Bret Hart, type deal. But who kind of on that Legends Raw or the Raw reunion kind of stuck out to you?
I believe Kelly stuck out to me because I didn't know that she left wrestling to
Mm,
pursue reality TV that she did, now doing modeling and all these other promotional things. I didn't know. So her, Alicia Fox, um, oh my, okay, there's a no, I don't think Teddy Long was on that episode. It was a
yeah.
few. I just can't pinpoint exactly. I just know a few that were there.
I mean, that's awesome. And Teddy Long, you're gonna go one on one with the Undertaker. That's it. Like any heel that got into the general manager's face, or just did something unsavory. Well, guess what? You went one on one with the Undertaker, and that's it. That's one of the most, like, everybody's got a price for the $1 million man. Real American for Hulk Hogan. And that guy is really an American. But those kind of taglines. If you smell what the Rock is cooking, those taglines. But I don't think the wrestling world gives Teddy Long his just due, because, like, man, it makes my day just watching or seeing a meme of one on one with the Undertaker, especially after the AJ Styles, Undertaker Boneyard match at
Yeah.
Mania. Like, that was it. That was like that AJ Styles and Taker coming up and creeping behind him. I think that's the most memed wrestling event of all But when you did it like a combination of the two, right? Those are just gold.
Oh my gosh, they really are. Like I think when I started watching SmackDown, I think Edge was on SmackDown. Teddy Long was a general manager.
Mhm.
Like Dolph Ziggler, I remember him when he like first started out, and a lot of other people who I just saw grow so much from that era to now, which is kind of crazy to see in the position that they are right now. Either they're released and they're in other promotions, or they're still in WWE, but either playing producer role like TJ. I didn't know he retired at all. So when I
Mm.
was reading like he had to retire in like 2015, 2016, I was kind of upset in a way, but I love seeing him help out the women's division so much, and just showing everybody that the producer role is a much more, I guess, better role for those that are retired.
Mhm.
And like I see his Instagram, like he's always working out. He's still working out to this day. He
Mhm.
trains in a ring with Natty, sometimes Brian Pillman Jr., Sasha, Aaliyah, all these other men and women that go and train with him whenever they have time off, which is great.
No, 100%. Which I want to touch on. One, I guess TJ Wilson, or Tyson Kidd, as the WWE universe knows him. But dudes at Ringside Podcast says, "Hey, what's going on? What's up, Metal Geek and Joe Panther Jr., who are up in the Eastern Seaboard, much like you, Carissa." So just saying. And in terms of Teddy Longisms. Yes, I'm going to make this a tag match. Yep, 100%. Or a 6-man tag. Yep, those are all Teddy Longisms. Our good friend, the good brother, BJ Darden, and better known as Bad Blood, says you guys are awesome. Just saying. Which, if you haven't already done so, go ahead and check out the Roundtable Pro Wrestling podcast. Just saying, which, much like Chris and I, are a part of the BodySlam.net universe. There we go. Right on. So in terms of TJ, right? The way that I was actually, just to date myself a little bit, um, I was friends with TJ Wilson on MySpace. Yes, on MySpace. Yes, 100%. And I was trying at the time. This had to be what, like, yeah, mid, like 2005, right before my son was born, about, I think, 2007. So I think this might have been like 2005, where we were MySpace friends and whatever. And I was like trying to, like, you should work for NWA TNA. You and that AJ Styles guy would have an amazing match and what have you. And man, funny enough, man, I wasn't too far off, but in terms, I'm a big, like, Heart Foundation. Like, my son's name is Owen, for goodness sake. So I'm a big Heart Foundation, Heart family, just mark, especially like doing some of the MMA stuff. And you just really appreciate not just Brett and Owen, but Stu, the father, the patriarch of the Hearts, and it's just like, I remember seeing or hearing about TJ Harry, who now is what, DH Smith, or,
Davy
you know,
Boyce.
Davies, yeah, exactly, Davy Boy Smith Jr. But it was Natty, TJ, and Harry, and that was it. And there was actually, I think it might have been right after or right around the dying days of WCW, where there was this thing called Mat Rats, and it was supposed to be a reality show on, like, Canadian professional wrestlers, but they're kids and what have you. And the centerpieces were TJ, Natty, and Harry, which, again, funny how everything kind of turned out, because Natty would go on to marry TJ. Obviously Harry and Natty are first cousins and what have you. Harry's still traveling the world. He's one of the ones that were just recently released. So, who hasn't been released is what we want to know, in the WWE universe. But very talented guy. Anytime that he's out here in LA, he trains, with, like, Josh Barnett, former UFC and IWGP champion, the trainer of one Shayna Baszler, and just a good dude. And Natty, man, talk about missed opportunities. When you give, like, literally Stu Hart's granddaughter. You could, yes, Brett and Owen and Davy's niece. You could say that all day now. No, Stu Hart's granddaughter, a dude who could literally make anybody in any sport, right, cry and say uncle with his sugar holes, men, women, no wonder. And you have his granddaughter, and the best you could do is give her a farting gimmick. Yeah, eat shit, WWE. I'm just saying.
That was great.
I've got a promo or two. I'm just saying, But yeah, and BJ Darden says, I acknowledge King Adam Woods, not Roman Reigns. Hey, you know what? King Xavier Woods. He's doing us justice, us Woods people justice, considering the way that I probably got my name is, somebody sent their slave out into the woods and then came back with a fox and whatever, and you're a woodsman. Yeah, Woods is your last name right now. Yeah, so that's probably it. So the fact that we've got a king and then me, the podcaster guy, we're not doing. Oh, and the golfer guy who likes to, cheat on the women and get into crashes or whatever. That guy. Like, the Woodses aren't doing too bad. so, as it stands now, who are your favorites to watch, whether it be Impact, WWE, what have you?
So WWE, Zelina Vega, obviously, because I know her. We're very close. So
Oh,
one of my favorites. Um, Gosh, there's a few. So Mustafa Ali
okay.
is a great one. I enjoy his work so much. He's very underutilized and he's not showcased as much, and he deserves the spotlight as much as possible. Oh, uh, definitely Sasha Banks.
Mm.
That woman is just I just can't explain it. She knows how to sell like so much, and like her in work is like bar none, I guess, better than other people because I know she's trained with Mako Satomura. She
Hmm.
sometimes trains with TJ. Sometimes at the PC. Like she trains almost everywhere. Like every single person who lives in the Florida area, she goes to their school and she trains with them. Devon Dudley, Matt Seidel, like the list goes on.
Yeah, just getting different looks from different coaches and trainer, and realistically, people when you look at like a Devon Dudley, people who have drawn money, in this business.
Yeah. So I think there's a few other from WWE, but I just can't pinpoint exactly. But for AEW, definitely Anna Jay, Thunder Rosa, who does follow me on Twitter. I'm trying to get a petition because I want to be on her taco vlog. So if you guys can help me out on Twitter, get me on her taco vlog. Um, Britt Baker, I think she's had one hell of a year, honestly. Like I don't know anyone besides Britt Baker that has had the best year of her career. So uh Cody Rhodes,
Mm.
people tend to boo him like in the ring, like on TV, but outside the ring he has such a big heart, honestly. Like he does a million jobs, but he commits to them, and he's just so kind in a way. He gives back to the community, and like that's what you look like. That's what you look for in a wrestler. Those that give back to the community. So definitely Cody, Malachi Black. I think he's gonna be a world champion next year. Tony Khan, please get that on your paper. Please book him for the world title at Double or Nothing in the main event. Thank you. Um, there's a lot more, but those are like my top favorites right now. Impact, Lady Frost, who just signed with Impact.
Hmm.
Um, she does notice me on Twitter, so Lady Frost, the Inspiration,
Of course.
the Impact Knockouts Tag Team Champions. I love them so much. Who else? Madison Rain, who's a veteran.
Yeah.
She's been there since like day one, I think. So it's like,
Not quite day one, but definitely. I mean, when they, because obviously, in terms of women, Gail Kim was in Impact as a valet for, I believe it was America's Most Wanted, where they didn't even have a women's division. That's why it was so big. Where like, Awesome Kong and Gail Kim having these matches that everybody from Dave Meltzer on down or up or whatever we're talking about, and then you had the beautiful people, Angelina Love and Velvet Sky, which I mean, the WWE version is lay cool with, Layla L and Mrs. Undertaker, right? Michelle McCool, right? So, but there was just, like I mean, cheerleader Melissa had a stint as I think it was Raisha Saeed as Awesome Comms manager and whatever. Like the, it, I mean, what's it? Taylor Wilde, is coming back into the fold, but she's a former, Impact Knockouts. I don't know if she was champion, but definitely tag team champion.
yeah,
Um, you know, uh, you want to talk about, one, I guess, known in some circles as Selena Vega, but Selena Vega was, uh, I believe she was Rosita,
yeah,
right, in Impact,
yeah,
right, and Sarita was Sarah Stock, who ended up becoming the female. I mean, one of the coaches at the WWE Performance Center. So It's kind of wild when you think about all the things that kind of crisscross and things people that you never thought would be in other places and become other places.
Yeah, it's like with Zelina, like I remember like hearing her story. She says she started trying out for WWE since 2010.
Yep.
Every other time she was trying out, they gave her a no. Until I remember, I think it was after she finished filming for Fighting with My Family.
Hmm.
They eventually gave her a contract. They signed her. She became Andrade's manager. She didn't know how well she succeeded. Like she tried her best, and like I think after her debut, in a way, of like being the manager, she said that Hunter was like pleased with her performance, and he absolutely loved it. And there you go. She's like one of the best promos in WWE right now.
Yeah.
I mean, she can do a British accent. She goes into her Spanish. She goes into the New Yorker accent, which is one of my favorites. So hats off to her for doing all of those at once.
No, I mean, hell of a talent, hell of a talent. And uh, BJ Darden says, "Oh, right, we got that one." And you are the Maharaja of MMA, and I think BJ is talking about you, Carissa, not so much me. I don't know jack shit about MMA, so there you go. And I'm excited to have the awesome Miss Lopez on the Roundtable Pro Wrestling Podcast for AEW Winners Coming Watch Along.
I'm
So
excited.
there you go.
I'm
Yeah,
excited.
excited. Ah, right. And Daniel Courtney Sanders says, "Ooh, yeah." Hopefully that's a Macho Man. Ooh, yeah. There you go. In my head, it is. All right, that's what we got, Sanders. But in terms of man, you know who doesn't get love? And I swear to God, like I every time at a time where because I felt like I was like a Impact Wrestling fan. They were doing something completely different, especially when like I took a sabbatical away from wrestling after like the Benoit tragedies and what have you, right? And then actually I started watching Impact, and I talk about day one. I remember maybe one of my cousins hooking me up with a digitized box that got all the pay-per-views. So I got the weekly $10 every Wednesday night from the old Impact Asylum in Nashville, pay-per-views, and watching like a Ricky Steamboat, you know, do referee a match for the NWA World Title, and Ken Shamrock, and was I forgot what. Yeah, Ron the Truth Killings he was, and I knew him
Yeah.
from as K Quick, for a short stint, with Road Dogg, and I was just like, man, it just seemed far and away, the X Division, like it's far and away something different,
Yeah.
than what the WWE was offering, and realistically, when I saw, like, I'm a WWF guy, but then I remember it was about like 92 ish where I saw Sting versus the Great Muta, right? And I'm like, holy shit, these two badasses. First off, there's different wrestling.
Yeah.
Second off, there's two dudes with fucking face paint, man. I was like a fucking 7-year-old kid. I'm like, yeah, I'm in. And they're fighting, and this one's blowing mist, and this guy's a surfer from Venice Beach, and I know Hogan's from Venice Beach, and like my mind went crazy, right? So I very much like the alternative. So NWATNA or now Impact Wrestling was always that alternative. But in terms of who doesn't get her respect, I think is one Rosemary. She's money, money. Every segment she's in, whatever match, even her, like you would have thought, like the whole Kiera Hogan and the alley, and she gets killed and everything. You thought that would have been so cheesy, especially for wrestling, right? But I think it's the characters, the performers. Allie, and who's now known as the Bunny in AEW, and Rosemary, they made you believe that. Like I cried when that shit happened, and I knew there's no way that you could whatever. But like this was an end of an era, and I was just like, so Rosemary to me, like whatever the fuck you put her in, you want her to cut a promo, like a white meat baby face, a body let's heal. the supernatural, whatever. She is money on the mic. She's money in the ring. That to me, she's one of the greatest wrestlers alive.
I think 100%. She's nobody like you know. She doesn't get her flowers in a way. Like she is one hard working woman. I mean, I seen like when I first started watching Impact. She was like in some segment with like Havoc and Susie, who was turning into Sue
Su
Young again.
Young, yep.
I think that was their Mexican tour.
Hmm.
When they did the tapings, I think that segment just made me, catch on to her and just like, get glued to TV even more to Impact, especially Rosemary because she's just awesome. I mean, give her the credit. Come on.
Yeah, and I was she almost falls into the trope of one like Abyss, right? Abyss for his entire career was with Impact, right? Now he's an agent for WWE. Apparently Vince loves him, and yeah, kudos to that guy, right? In doing the Chris Sparks thing. But I almost feel like, especially with all the money that's being thrown around, because I don't care what you call it, right? Combat sports. You can call it MMA, you could call it jiu-jitsu, you could call it boxing, you could call it pro wrestling, whatever. There has never been more money in combat sports than there are today, right? You've got a big publicly traded company, the biggest Hollywood talent agency owns the UFC. Viacom owns Bellator, right? Then you've got Anthem, who owns Impact, and Invicta on all female women's promotion, right? You've got LFA on UFC Fight Pass. You got WWE owned by Vince and the shareholders. You've got AEW. Like, there's never been boxing's hot. Like there's never been more money in combat sports. You have pro wrestlers going over to MMA. You have MMA fighters coming into pro wrestling. Look no further than Josh Barnett's Bloodsport. Look no further than Shayna Baszler, right? And even like people who adapt a bit of a MMA style to their pro wrestling, like a Brian Danielson, like a Dave Richards, like there's Samoa Joe. There's a lot of guys and girls, Shayna Baszler, right, that adapt an MMA kind of shoot style into their pro wrestling, right? But to tell me that Rosemary couldn't make more than what she's making now is a fucking travesty, man.
I had to agree with you. I mean, she just I don't understand what's going on exactly, but she's money like on TV in the ring, promo segments, backstage segments, whatever segment or match you put her in, she's money. She deserves all of it.
No, 1,000%. Which I mean, if you were, because for me, right, there was a quick kind of glimmer that the WWE was interested in her to kind of maybe be Sister Abigail in the Wyatt family. I thought that was a fucking huge missed opportunity in the sense that, I mean, obviously the role ended up going to maybe Alexa Bliss, and she wasn't, you know, she wasn't Sister Abigail, to an extent, but she did wonders with that character. And again, that's another one who, in terms of the WWE docket, like a lot of people, give Charlotte credit, as well you should, but Alexa Bliss, so compared to what she was with Murphy and the other guy who
Um,
became was it
Wesley,
was Blake and Murphy, wasn't
yeah,
it? Yeah. And the sparkle splash and everything like that. Like she's an incredible performer. But for that role, that's Rosemary.
yeah. But I think like when they gave Alexa Bliss the role, I didn't expect her to exceed expectations in a way, and she exceeded every single expectation. Even though there was one mess up during Money in the Bank, everything she did with that character, I think, was money. Like, I don't like people just bashing on it in a way because she tried so hard to add more into that character and to show she's capable of doing dark characters like the one she just did recently. And now
Hmm.
we're just waiting for her return. She kind of did tease it during Raw, but we don't know for sure when she's back.
Mm. So my sister kind of gave me a little bit of an insight of what uh, Alexa Bliss is doing. So for those who follow her on social media, she's engaged to Ryan Cabrera, who I mean he's had like a pop rocker that had quite a few hits. I think one of his biggest hits was like a love song to his fiance at the time, Jessica Simpson's sister Ashley. You know, they had a whole reality show and what have you, but she's been touring with him because like my sister's a huge big boy band, you know, of the early 2000s, you know, kind of fiend, right? So I think she flew out to, I want to say it was like Dallas. She flew out to Dallas to go see O Town, and it was like Ryan Cabrera was there, and like night one of the guys from the only living guy from LFO, you know, and then O Town, right? So my sister, as she's kind of waiting in line for her meet and greet, and it's like, oh, that's the wrestler chick, and then shoots a picture and texted it to me, and I was like, holy shit, it's looking Alexa Bliss. So that, for those who don't know, that's what she's up to.
Wow, that's pretty crazy.
It is crazy. It is crazy. Also crazy. McMack says now I owe him $7. So apparently adjusted for inflation, and again, we don't know if it's for Canadian or U.S. dollars, but McMack, we'll get your we'll get your money here. Uh, Now, in terms of like what really excites you as a fan, as a person who covers the sport, like what storylines right now are kind of like piquing your interest?
The Britt Baker storyline, honestly. I mean, we all know she's set to lose her title in March. That's what I believe. That's what a lot of people are saying, and I believe she's gonna lose that title at Revolution to one Miss Thunder Rosa,
Ooh.
because we know Thunder Rosa is in the TBS title tournament, but she's gonna eventually lose to Jade because Jade is not gonna end her winning streak that quick.
Really?
Yes. And I saw that on a couple of taped episodes I did with Jay Shell Nicole for Fantasy Booking Friday. I believe either they're live or they're set to be live soon. So I've like predicted that in a way because I eventually see Jade Cargill being the first ever CBS women's champion, then have Thunder Rosa go into the world title picture to beat Britt at Revolution to become the next AEW World Women's Champion.
I mean, I take that booking, but one person who is interestingly left out is one Ruby Riot, the Runaway. So I mean, what I mean, obviously we have the TBS title and the AEW Women's title. The TBS title becoming almost like the Intercontinental Championship or the US title for men in the WWE, but that for women, which I dig that idea. I don't think there has been a secondary women's title for a major promotion at least in 30 years, if anything. So where do you see Ruby Riot? Because she came in pretty hot. I mean, she's one who I don't believe, you know, loses her audience, wins or losses. And the same thing with Britt Baker. Wins and losses don't matter. She's a star. She can lose the championship tomorrow, and everybody's still going to be DMD and, you know, buying her merch and all that jazz. So, but Ruby Riot, like, where do you see her in this whole picture with her two titles?
I mean, so she's in a semifinal, so I think she goes to the finals and beats Nyla Rose, and then Jade beats Thunder Rose and heads on to the finals. I see Jade beating Ruby in order to win
Mm.
the title because I don't think Ruby's just ready to win the title. I think when you're in a title picture or title contendership, I believe it should go to those who have been in AEW for a while, like Britt Baker. She's been with AEW since the start. Jay Cargill came in last year, so it's like give the title to those who have been here for a few years now, and when it's your time, you eventually go and win the title.
So, what do you make of all of these? And it's crazy now with all of the influx of new talent. It's kind of crazy that Jade Cargill is almost an AEW veteran, so to speak. So, what do you make of all of the signings? I mean, do you think there any of the release talent that showed up in AEW? Do you think maybe they shouldn't have been signed? Maybe they should have tested their deal in the Indies. Like, what is your take on all the recent releases and now signings, seemingly?
Well, a few releases, I was pretty upset when I saw the news. Like, Taya Valkyrie, I didn't think she was gonna get released so soon. When the stuff came out saying that she was too old to be in NXT, I was kind of upset because she's a veteran. We know that, but age shouldn't matter when it comes to women when they're in wrestling. They said they wanted like 25 or younger, and I was like, age should not matter. Like, Taya Valkyrie has been to Mexico. She's trained in Stardom, in Canada, here in the States. She's been all over the world. So it's like she has experience and she can add on to that here in WWE. They just didn't really use her properly. And I think they should have just brought her up to the main roster to stay with her husband, with John, because we know they've had like on screen, roles together in Impact as, Mr. and Mrs. Things like Slamtown or something like that. I forgot.
Yeah,
And they were together on Impact. Like they had, even though we knew that they were married, we saw a lot of work that they did. And then you put them in WWE, they can add on to that and make it even more better for like a mixed tag match, or both of them in singles, title contendership. Like, kind of, it was a missed opportunity for WWE, and they shouldn't have released them, especially.
yeah, and it's wild, right? In terms of in independent talent, I know independent talent. We've got friends with people that are in the indies and what have you, and it's crazy how the landscape has shifted, right? Because like, you know, of maybe even last year or the year before last, right? There might have been a template, especially if you saw the careers of like Kevin Owens or Sami Zayn or Kevin Steen and mm, allegedly El Generico. But you know, it's weird where you structure your training like here in LA people go to Santino Brothers, right? Which has spawned so many wrestlers, right, that have littered the indie, New Japan, what have you seen, right? In the Eastern Seaboard, you've got the Monster Factory and Creative Pro, right? Just amazing, reality of wrestling, or where Booker T's training school is down in Houston. There's so many things, the Devon Dudley's camp in Florida, in Tampa, right? And then you swear that what the WWE is looking for, and you gear your entire career on that, and then they just change the parameters all willy nilly.
Yeah, and it's like, WWE. When I saw the news, like when I saw the interview with Nick Khan and that he did with Eric Hawani back for some,
Mm-hmm.
where like he said it was a change and NXT and all that stuff, a lot of us were nervous, you know. And then news came out how they didn't want to sign any talent anymore. They want athletes like um those that played football, soccer, or gymnastics or whatever in college, train them in the performance center, which doesn't make sense because you're used to one sport. So it wouldn't make sense for them to transition so quickly into a different one. When you have people busting their ass on the independent scene, GCW, and oh, P, what was it? Oh my god,
PWG.
PWG, and like just a lot of other independent promotions that have a lot of talent who you really need to keep your eye on because they could be potential signees for these major promotions or these minor promotions, and it's like WWE doesn't care about the indie scene. It's like once you sign with WWE, your soul is with them. They take your name, they change your name, they trademark in-ring name, phrases, merchandise and all that stuff, they trademarked that. And you aren't allowed to use that. And, just all of that doesn't make sense for somebody to like be in WWE in a way, because in AEW and Impact and MLW, you have the freedom to say what you want to say. Of course, you eventually need to get the green light from Tony Khan, but it's like you get to be free. Merchandise wise, wrestlers pick out the designs. That's what when I saw when I heard Malachi Black say that for his merch, he was you know excited to have his own artwork there and not have anybody else's.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know he works with a lot of great artists that have made a lot of great things for his brand, Black Mass, and for his AEW shirts. Like, that's all of them, and it's like amazing to see. In one company, you get freedom, and the other one, you're sold with them, and they control your whole life.
Yeah, the WWE, my goodness. But speaking of like intellectual properties, Micmac says $7 now, extra for interest. And apparently, congratulations on your achievement, Mr. Woods, which I didn't know I achieved anything. So, 10 points. And Joey the Bullhina host that says, bring back Sacco, and then bring back the Killer Bees. And then also bring the little people back to wrestling, TV wrestling, and the WWE and
A-
I think he
AEW.
wants AEW, but I want to believe he said awe. Let's bring him back to awe. All right, Joey, we got you. No, but it's the WWE right now, right? And you mentioned that Era Hawani interview. Well, most people don't realize, right? Especially in the pro wrestling landscape, who Ariel Hawani is, right? Ariel Hawani, much like Dave Meltzer, is probably the only one of the guys that is unanimously hated by both Vince McMahon and Dana White of the UFC, right? He is probably the scummiest reporter in the combat sports realm, especially there's a time that he was banned for from the UFC for basically leaking that Brock Lesnar would make his return at UFC 200, right? There's been a litany of things, right? But just to show you how scummy the associations can be, Nick Khan was Ariel's manager before signing with the WWE. And now he's the most powerful man in the WWE. I almost revert back to Jim Cornette. We're like, oh, wait, the NWA is owned by the guy with the most heat in the Smashing Pumpkins? Like, what the hell are we doing? So the second in command next to Vince McMahon making all of the decisions is like the former manager of the most hated guy in MMA. Tells you everything you need to know. Yeah, it's wild. It's wild to think about. And like in years past, I've gotten kind of heat with people like, oh, why you do pro wrestling stuff? Why do you MMA stuff from the pro wrestling people, right? And I'm like, yo, they're more aligned than they are different. My goodness, at the turn of the century, pro wrestling was essentially what we now know as jiu-jitsu. Two guys just hours and hours exchanging holds, and people would pay to see that. And here in North America, people are just like, oh no, wrestling was there. I mean, boxing was there and nothing else. I'm like, actually, pro wrestling was cheaper to produce, so pro wrestling was actually a bigger deal than boxing was. Into the like, I think boxing kind of had the Jack Johnson, right? And then into like the 20s and 30s and what have you. But there was that 10-15 year period where wrestling on the radio was that was the bee's knees. Abraham Lincoln and Teddy Roosevelt, former presidents, were catch wrestlers, right? Not boxers, catch wrestlers, because wrestling was more of a man's man sport than even boxing was. So it's just wild. It's just wild that Ara Hawani's former manager is the guy who's basically playing literally pickup sticks with some of the biggest name talent in the wrestling universe.
100%. I mean, Nick Khan. When I saw the interview, shocked in a way because I remember Ariel asked him about the releases and those that lost their jobs, and he's like, "That's not my decision. That's mine, Stephanie's, and Hunter's." And I didn't believe that, and I still don't believe that to this day. I don't think
Mm-hmm.
because I don't think Stephanie and Hunter, you know, um, get to choose as well who gets to be cut from the company. I think that's all Nick Khan because he's not only just the chief officer of revenue, he's also the president. Who he
Mm-hmm.
so he got I believe chief officer of revenue was given to him when he first started in 2020 in August. Later on this year, they moved his position to have another role as well, which was president, where you make all the decisions, partnerships with Peacock, BT Sport, all these other like big companies and big names. He makes those choices, and like he's just in charge of everything, like merch sales, I guess TV partnerships like NBC and Fox, and then you got Peacock as well. You have all these other partnerships that you have. He keeps in touch with every single thing based off what they make, I think annually. So yeah.
Yeah. Which, I mean, the fact, and apparently, Nick Khan isn't the most heelish person in pro wrestling right now because went to the old Down Smack or WWE SmackDown with a bunch of friends, and good friend George Ramosa actually has a picture, and he was pretty psyched to get a picture of one Nick Khan. So yeah, I mean, Nick Khan's not a heel to everyone. Uh, So shout out to George Hermosa of the Wrestling Chatter for that. But yeah, which for somebody that hasn't, in any era, post Vince's father, right? Yeah, owning the company and giving it to or selling it to Vince and Linda, I think it was like 83, 84, right? Um,
Yeah.
Vince is not somebody who gives a lot of control to anybody. And Nick Khan, a guy who's not a wrestling person, right? You got to think about it, right? In under the employ of Vince McMahon, at any given time, we got Bruce Pritchard, Jim Cornette, who's it, Terry Taylor, Dusty Rhodes, Blackjack Lanza, R.I.P. He just passed away. Uh, a litany of different people, a litany of different people who have essentially essentially taken up WWE's payroll, right? Paul Heyman included, right? And the fact that Nick Khan so early on has been given this much power from one Vince McMahon, I wonder what the hell that like screening that interview with Nick Khan and Vince McMahon went down. Like it's because obviously we've seen it in Beyond the Mat where we have Darren Drozdov, doing an interview with Vince McMahon and going like, he's gonna puke. He's gonna puke. So Carissa Lopez, what do you think Nick Khan did in the interview with Vince, presumably, to get that much power so soon?
I mean, I honestly don't know because all I remember from that interview with Ariel Hawani, he basically, said that he knew Vince for a long time. So they've been friends for years. Um, I think he said something about his first time going to WrestleMania was like WrestleMania 9 or something like that. So he was a big fan as a kid, and I think he did. I don't know if he did valet or if he did security role or something like that. I remember he said that he was obsessed with WWE since he was a kid. So he went to college, learned all like the accounting stuff, revenue, and all that good shit. So I guess just that bond that they had for so many years that made Vince think, oh, I'll put him as president. He gets this role now, so it's like he has the power. I don't need to tell him this, that, or the third. So it's basically a way of like letting Vince know that he knows what he's doing and Vince should not worry about it. So it's not Vince's call, honestly. It's all Nick Khan, because Johnny Laurinaitis is the one that makes the phone calls, that gives the basic explanation, which is budget cuts. That's all he does, because he's only head of talent relations. So his role is only making the phone calls, letting them know that they're cut, that they get a non compete for so and so days, but that's it.
Yeah, which I don't know if you saw this on the socials, but giving a little bit more valor to Nick Khan's association within the wrestling industry that was pretty much, asleep for the rest of the pro wrestling. I mean, before he became, involved with the WWE in 2000, we didn't hear much of him. But somebody who did, who's a wrestling personality, is arguably the biggest star in Hollywood, The Rock. The Rock. And it says, this picture means a lot to me, right? It says, years in the making, full circle. In the mid 1980s, Nick Khan, his sister, and myself used to run around as kids in Honolulu, Hawaii, every month when my grandmother would promote her local pro wrestling shows at our local reunion, at our local arena. As kids, we loved the pro wrestling business, and as adults, our love and respect for the wrestling business has become boundless. Now, years later. So, the reason why I kind of bring that up, we saw what we saw at Survivor Series. Historically, one of the WWE or WWF's big four pay per views, right? When there was only four pay per views, right? Well, what do we know about Survivor Series 2021, Carissa?
It was not what anyone expected. It was a big mess. Everybody was hoping for The Rock, to come back to WWE, to make a small cameo in a way. And they just flopped on it because all the big teases of, him going to have a WrestleMania match with his cousin Roman Reigns, or like, just him in Survivor Series, because he debuted there 25 years ago. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
that should have been where he should have, returned to, make the cameo, or even better, start up the build for WrestleMania, if that's still a thing, or they're gonna lay off until 2023. So it's like, but it was a huge flop, and I was pretty upset. Everyone was upset, and I'm just like, and they need The Rock. That's all.
Yeah, which is wild, right? When you think about it, now that we know, like hindsight 2020, now that we know that, Vince and Nick Khan have been friends for eons, now that we know that The Rock's close association with both Vince and Nick, right? The fact that we didn't, there was a promo that Vince did about his how big his grapefruits are. Oh God, he's the genetic jackhammer, right? Well, we wanted The Rock, and all we got is his golden egg. So I don't know if you want to make the association or what have you, but that's what we got, and it's just, to me, I'm frustrated with the WWE. I haven't, Roman Reigns. Speaking of Roman Reigns, I'm not a fan of, and I'm not talking about Joe Anawahi, the guy, right? I'm talking about Roman Reigns, the character. This is a guy who is supposed to be a badass, but he's the weakest of three guys that are also badasses, but two of which I knew in Tyler Black, now Seth Rollins, and Dean Ambrose. And I mean, he'll always be John Moxley to me, before and now after his WWE run. But the fact that those guys, right, were SWAT gear when they went into a wrestling ring, but Roman sewed punches to the stomach when he has a bloody fucking vest on. What the hell are you doing? What are we doing? Again, I almost foresaw, like, I'm not surprised by Nick Khan at all, right? Like, oh, I'm gonna give him all the power, damn it, because guess what? He picked Roman to be the guy for the next 20 years. And I'm like, how the hell is that your guy? He's a SWAT guy, but he has a move called the drive by. Come on, yes. Like what the hell, you know? And yes, is he doing the best work of his career? Absolutely. But what other form of entertainment, right? What other band? What other movie? What other comic book? YouTube channel? Whatever the hell, TikTok account, whatever. That it took 6 years for the focused character to get good. No other.
Uh, there isn't, honestly. It's like they've given Roman a lot of power since he's returned in SummerSlam last year with this new character that
New
should
teeth.
have had for he got veneers, so it's like it's a whole new thing. But the thing is that they should have given him this role a few years back. Felt like, you know, having it now, especially during the pandemic, was such a big thing. But I think they missed out on changing him heel years. Like, I think right after the Shields broke up and Ambrose went to New Japan, um, I think that time that's when he should have we should have portrayed that role. I don't think we should have waited so long for it. Like there was no need to have such a long wait because I know people have said, oh, we're proud of him having this role and all that good stuff. But the thing is that he's been with the company for 6 years. He's been in FCW, NXT, main roster. Like 2019 was supposed to be the year of like Roman as a heel. Like that's what I wanted. But we didn't get that. We still got babyface Roman, which a lot of people are okay with that. But it's like he's been a babyface for so many years. Should just change then and there. But it's like they missed out on the opportunity.
I agree. I agree. McMack says NWA sucks. Ooh, ouch. I don't think it sucks. I think it's fun. And I've got a NWA replica here as well as a Luthez replica. I'm sure there aren't too many Luthez marks, but I happen to be one. So shout out to Luthez. And you got to be happy with this accomplishment, Adam. I still don't know what accomplishment, but thank you, I guess. 10 points. 10 points, McMac. Now, Carissa, before we go, in terms of obviously, we're on the ass end of the year that is 2021, right? And what do you foresee as some of the MVPs as we go into 2022?
Oh, MVPs. Honestly, there's a lot to name, but as for like AEW, I think the MVP of the year definitely has to be Dante Martin.
Yes.
Uh, Dante Martin, give him his flowers for that solo he's had for such a long time. Right after his brother's injury, he's been in singles competition, just having banger matches with Kenny Omega, Matt Sydal, and like just everybody basically. It's like he's a year older than me, and it's crazy to see somebody so young yet have amazing passion and talent, and still the banger matches he's had this year can showcase what he can be next year. Maybe a future TNC championship match. I don't know, but that is a thing. So yeah, Dante Martin definitely. I think for Impact, oh, okay, for Impact that's gotta be a hard one, but I had to say Jordan Grace. I mean, she's a inaugural TV champion there, so it's like she's yet so underutilized sometimes, but when she does get her spotlight, it's like she knows how to work it. She knows how to, show everybody that she's not just a girl, a woman that has an amazing shape. It's very masculine in a way, but she can show off so much that not a lot of women get the opportunity or just don't show it enough.
No, I agree. I mean, and it's her So two of my favorite wrestlers right now, like actively, and this just shows you the wide array of like pro wrestling takes that I dig. But Danhausen and yes, more teeth. When you said Roman Reigns' veneers, I was like, I want Danhausen and Roman for a match, and all Roman's veneers, his teeth will be up for grabs. That's all I want. I really that's all I want.
I can go on for as long as you want. I don't have anything else to do right now, so.
Yeah. So I'm, I'm just saying. So that right there is it. But also Jordan Grace's husband, one Jonathan Grisham. God, he is one of the most. I mean, I got to see him against Minoru Suzuki here in LA, and for GCW Up in the Air, and then again, he him and Chris Dickinson. We talk about another Northeast guy, but him and Chris Dickinson for Josh Barnett's Bloodsport, and then the following night, I see. I only thought I was going to see Suzuki once. I got to see him three times in all GCW shows, right? So him and Grisham the first like 2 weeks, whatever, and then 2 weeks after it's Dirty Daddy Chris Dickinson and Minoru Suzuki, and then the following night was Suzuki versus Nick Gage.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
that's just
I got my
crazy.
I got my Suzuki on. That guy right there. There you go. There's a bit of a glare, but this is a special edition. Kind of when I think he faced Okada in this like his anniversary show. It was like his 20th anniversary show and what have you. And it's in the rain, but you heard the lady who sings Casa Nina Ray, and
Yeah.
she sang him to the ring and whatever. But yeah, so to me, Jonathan Grisham, holy shit, that guy. And I would love to see him. We talked about, Taya Valkyrie and Johnny, whatever company that he's working for. That's what he'll be. Johnny Impact, Johnny Mundo, whatever you want to call him. John Hennigan, right? Just like we see that. I would love to see, you know, Jordan Grace and Jonathan Grisham as a couple on screen TV. And I just want them to beat the shit out of everyone. Like
Oh
you
my
could just
god.
call them the fucking conquerors because you call them the Mongols. They just beat the shit out of everyone. She power lifts him and then tosses him to Jonathan, and Jonathan just fucking stretches them, puts their fucking fist in their face, and just that's it. And then you have Dan and to be managed by Danhausen, where he's picking up the teeth.
I've absolutely loved that. It just brought up Jordan and Jonathan. Um, I'd like to see Jordan and Jonathan against uh John John Hennigan and Taya Valkyrie.
Oh yes. Which I mean, my goodness, Terminus, right? Out of Atlanta, that's Jonathan Grisham's promotion, and now he is the the current and Ring of Honor champion, and they brought out the the legacy, what I believe is the legacy belt, and he holds that title. I would love to see in Terminus either a one-on-one match for the Ring of Honor World Championship between him and Hannigan, or they do a mixed tag and their spouses about. But like that needs to happen, especially like none of them really have contracts anywhere, whatever. Like fucking GCW, like get that shit going, bro. I'm just saying. So I mean, Jordan Grace. I mean, so you said Jordan Grace.
Yes, definitely. I think for WWE. Ooh, okay, this is a hard one because Bobby Lashley.
Really? Okay.
I mean, he was a WWE champion for the first time in his career, and he was a great champion, honestly. Overlooked, but you know he was a great champion for that year, for this year, and who knows, he could win the championship again next year, or whatever year before he ends up retiring. Um, so him, Sheamus, of course. I mean, give that man his flowers. that man came back during the pandemic from an injury, you know, all that good stuff. It's like Sheamus, Cesaro, um, Ilya Dragunov.
Oh yes.
How much I love Ilya Dragunov. Um, you know, he's had multiple attempts at winning that UK title for NXT UK. Comes to the States for Takeover against Walter for the title. Ends up winning it in a match. I think everybody's gonna look at every every time, you know, like you turn on Peacock, you go to WWE. The match that you're gonna replay the most is Ilya versus Walter for that title. But not one.
Or even the first one too.
Yeah, one was great, but two was like the best because it was live. It was in the States, and it was just crazy in a way.
I like it. I like it. Yeah, I'm a big. You don't have to sell me on NXT UK. I'm a huge. I love everybody like Mustache Mountain. Like people were talking about, like, oh, FTR and whatever, or the fucking biggest tag team, whatever the fuck. And I love FTR. I love the Briscoes. There's nothing against it, but fucking Mustache Mountain, Trent Seven, and fucking Tyler Bate. Good God, watch them. Sit somebody who's not a wrestling fan. Sit them and watch a fucking Mustache Mountain match, and you tell me they are one of the best fucking tag teams, not just around, but of all time. Holy shit, those two are great. Which nobody's asking me for, but I will say, in terms of the biggest, actually, before I get into the what I feel is the biggest star, Mick Mac says NWA sucks because they took the Australian flag off the title, and then apparently me tuning me is what I get a congratulations for, which I'm not exactly sure, but fuck yeah or whatever. And then hello Johnny, says Michael McKay on Twitch. So hello Johnny, but it's not going to be Johnny who's the biggest star in the WWE in 2022, because my biggest star, the one who's going to most benefit from the WWE in 2022. Do you know who it is, Carissa? You know who I'm thinking?
Probably not. I don't think so. No.
Nick fucking Khan! Because when the WWE gets sold right after Mania, much like the UFC did right after UFC 200, right? Nick Khan, outside of Vince McMahon, more than Hunter, more than Steph, more than Linda, more than Shane, Nick Khan has the most to benefit, right? From like 0 to 60, Nick Khan. So when the WWE gets sold, and damn it, it's going to get sold, Nick Khan will be the biggest star in the WWE because he's the one who crushes it to smithereens. That's what I got.
100%. I mean, there are rumors that they're gonna end up selling to Disney.
You think it's Disney?
I think so because everything is just PG. Everything's all, you know, kid. You know, everything's like basically for kids. So it's like not very. I guess, you know, just like the TV stuff is very kid friendly. It's not very adult like in a way. Like AEW, you're allowed to curse on live TV. You're allowed to, you know, have, you know, you can see blood on live TV. They don't, and when they like replay it, they don't, you know, put it in black and white. Versus like WWE, everything's black and white, and then, you know, they had to bleep out every single curse word except for the B word. So it's like,
I think. Okay, so where can you find the now or the former WWE network? If you're here in North America. If you're here in North America, where can you find it?
On Peacock.
Okay. Who's the parent company?
NBC Universal.
Yep. So, and I hear what you're saying in terms of Disney, and Disney would be in the running because Disney, right? When you think about it, they have a NBC Universal deal with both NXT and Raw. right? And a Fox deal, but during the nature of the deal, Fox became Disney, right? In the middle of
in
it
a way.
all, right? So, I mean, Fox's parent, if you're thinking like, oh, it's going to be NBC and Fox, well, Fox is now Disney, right? And when you think about it, if the WWE really wants a physical Hall of Fame, there's only two places you do it, and they're both in Florida. And you know where those are?
I don't. Yeah, I don't. I have no clue whatsoever.
Walt Disney World, owned by Disney, and Universal Studios Orlando.
True. Yes, you're right.
But
Because
here's
both of those are Disney owned. You know.
Universal is Universal. Universal Studios is Universal.
Yeah, so it's like, you know, I because I remember I think it was that MLW episode where it was like a round table of like Raj, Meltzer via satellite, um, Andreas, Alicia too, and Emilio Sparks. They brought up that topic. They said, "Will WWE eventually sell to Disney?" And a lot of them said there could be a potential, sale, that could happen. And I think, it could be soon. It could be in the next 2 years. We don't know, depending on how well, how much revenue, how much they make, how much WWE makes annually will depict on if they'll sell or not, because we know they make a lot of money off of NBC, a lot of money off of Fox, a lot of money off of partnerships with Peacock. Their what other partnerships do they have? Like the sponsorships as well that they have. They make money off of that. It's not just for wrestlers; it goes directly to WWE. So it's like, depending on how how well they're doing, they won't sell. If they don't exceed expectations and all the partnerships are gone, all the sponsorships are gone, all of that is, deteriorating little by little, they sell.
So, I think the sale happens, but here's here's a number I'm going to throw out to you: 175 million. And what do you think if you're going to bet? What does that number signify? 175 million.
Okay, so 175 billion. I think that, like, okay, it's really hard to like pinpoint one thing, but it's like I I don't know exactly, but it's like in a
You want me
way,
to you want me to
it's
let
like
you know?
base in a way. Yeah, it's just so me.
It's the WWE's Saudi Arabia deal that was signed for the first year in 2018. Okay? 110-year agreement to do 3 shows a year
Yeah.
in Saudi Arabia. Right? So, what I foresee happening, right, is Saudi Arabia becomes almost a plausible place to go, right? Like people go to Fiji, people go to Bora Bora, go to Jamaica, whatever. Saudi Arabia will become that because the WWE and UFC have both held shows within the last 24 months there, and big shows, right? So what I actually see happening is them making it so good that when this deal is in place, right? Because what 2022 will be year 4 of a 10-year deal. So what ends up happening is whoever, may it be Disney, may it be NBC Universal, right? That when the eventual say comes will probably happen next year after Mania. I mean 2023 after Mania, right? In the WWE and the UFC both would have made Saudi Arabia as a not so militant whatever. It would be nice. It'd be Disneyland, you know, the Middle East, right? So nobody's gonna scoff that. TMZ is not gonna scoff that, or the Hollywood Reporter or the New York Times are not gonna scoff that. Guess what? One of these two big companies, NBC Universal and Disney, basically bought the WWE, who has an existing deal with this supposed tyrant in Saudi Arabia, right? So I think that's what this whole thing is, right? This whatever. And then I actually believe it'll be NBC Universal, because how the hell are what is Disney really getting? Especially if Disney has a streaming service, just like NBC Universal via Peacock have a streaming service. So you got NBC, I mean the Peacock network and the NBC and Disney Plus, right? So with that all being said, if you've already given your streaming library to NBC Universal via the Peacock network, well, guess what? Everything else is just bones. So you might as well give the bones to it, unless Vince wanted to give, like was on his deathbed, really spiteful and like, god damn it, I'm gonna make these two play against each other, much like he did with both Fox and Universal, right? With SmackDown, you have them fight them to the death, and you sell for big money to Disney, and have those two big conglomerates fucking figure it out. And what happens? And then Vince takes a dirt nap. Just saying. That's how I see it.
I mean, it's like with Disney, they do have a streaming service, right? But they have a bundle service which you can get for extra, which includes ESPN and
Mm-hmm.
Hulu. Um, WWE has a partnership. They have a deal with Hulu right now. I
Mm-hmm.
believe. I'm not sure if that's gonna end soon, but I know they have a deal with Hulu where they air main event every Thursday, and then short and shorter versions of Raw and SmackDown. So it's like
Yeah.
there's that and Hulu works with Disney.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like
Yeah. It's gonna streaming has definitely made it strange bedfellows, but I think, on his way out, where would it's who gets to start the construction for a WWE physical Hall of Fame. Does it happen? And again, I don't. For me, both Disney, here in Anaheim, and Universal Studios Hollywood are much too small for it. So it happens in Florida, where again the WWE already have their performance center and all that jazz, and sending all this hot and young talent and whatever, right? So that's I want to believe it's NBC Universal, and we get probably by 2025 a physical WWE Hall of Fame that you could go to, and that happens probably at Universal Studios Hollywood.
yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with you on that. I do see that happening. So
Yeah, yeah. Now, Carissa, for everything that you're doing with BodySlam.net, everything that you're doing, obviously there have been a lot of people who have kind of trumpeted all of your acclaim, both professionally and personally. So, take as long as you need. Let's get some shout outs out of the way.
uh okay. So shout out to the boss himself, Cassidy. He's amazing to work with. He's such a sweetheart. So he's all around a great person. Jay Shell, who's my coworker and co-host for Fantasy Booking Friday, that we do live streams every Friday. We fantasy book our own like promotions. How would we rewrite these these like how would we have Roman Reigns lose his Universal Championship? And all these great things, and it's like amazing to do that because shout out to one Mr. Alex McCarthy, who just did an interview with Sonya Deville and did an interview with Zelina Vega in person during Survivor Series. I used to do the phone-ins for Talk Wrestling every single Monday. And he gave me the nickname last year, the Resident Fantasy Booker. So I've kept that name ever since. I've done phone-ins with Wrestling Daily as well, so it's like I've done a lot of fantasy booking there, and I did a lot of I talked about wrestling in general. Um, Sean Ross Sapp, the man that breaks the news on Fightful. Uh, every time I talk to him, it's just I don't know, he's just so positive and so grateful, for those who are breaking in now into the wrestling media scene. Kate, who is such a joy with to talk to, and her tweets are just so entertaining. So shout out to her. Um, Jeremy Lambert, Joe Hoover of the Distraction Podcast. Those are the funniest guys and the great guys surround with. Um, and I think that's all for now. Yeah.
I think
I think so, yeah.
yeah, it takes a village. It absolutely takes a village. So it's cool that your village is synonymous with success. So shout out to all of those fine folks. But speaking of village, for people that want to get a little bit more insight from you, Carisa Lopez, where can they find you on the socials?
All right, so you guys can find me on my Twitter at CarissaL517. I am so close to 500 followers, so if you guys can get me there before the year ends, I gladly appreciate that. I do post a lot of wrestling, K-pop, and sometimes anime, which I do need to keep up with. So there's that. You can go follow my Instagram at Carissa._. I post very frequently. So I'm not, crazy person that likes to like post a lot. So it's like very occasionally. So my recent post there is when I met one Miss Sonia Deville and Mandy Rose at their pop-up shop in New York City. I was super excited. So that's like my recent post. But yeah, I am close to 1,900 followers. So if you can go follow me over there.
Hell yes. And again, she said it once before, but it bears repeating. Those social media tags are right down here in the description, so you don't have to look far, folks. But Carissa, thank you so much for doing this. And thank you guys for watching us here at the According to Woods podcast. And if you haven't already done so, go ahead and like, share, and subscribe to the According to Woods podcast on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. Carissa, you're subscribed to the podcast, aren't you?
Yes, I'm subscribed to every single podcast.
Hell yes. So be like Carissa and go ahead and subscribe to the podcast. But if you don't believe me, you don't believe Carissa, and I don't know why you wouldn't. Well, here's Zeta Zang.
Hey, this is Zeta Zhang. Make sure you subscribe